Just like 99.9% of people who have started One Piece, I've recently become addicted and have absolutely fallen in love with everything about the series. From the character writing, the story, the twists, the turns, the ups, the downs, I just can't get enough of it. So much so that I think Ichiro Oda has firmly cemented himself as one of my favorite writers of all time in any creative medium, joining my personal Mount Rushmore alongside Jonathan Hickman, James Gunn, and Stan Lee. Now, when I say I'm a massive One Piece fan, let me explain where exactly I am in the grand scheme of the series. I'm currently on episode 648 of the anime, firmly in the Dressrosa arc. I just bought the first box set for the manga and plan to begin reading it very soon, and I also just watched the live-action adaptation for Netflix, which is the subject of our video today. I absolutely love the live-action One Piece. I think the creative team really sent a love letter to fans with all the small, intricate details interwoven within the fabric of the cast, the elements of the story used in the condensed 8-episode format, and the life they place into this fictional world. The success of Season 1 has me incredibly excited for Season 2, which will likely see a cover of the Arabasta saga, where we'll get introduced to one of my personal favorite villains, Crocodile. This excitement has really got me thinking about how a live-action One Piece Season 2 should be structured. And that's what I'm here to talk about today. What I'm going to attempt to do is condense the Arabasta saga into an 8-episode format and discuss exactly how I would go about doing this. Some of the things I will be discussing in this episode will include the titles of all 8 episodes, a breakdown of the plot, the projected run times, the major characters introduced in each episode, and some castings here and there to round things out. Now, a quick note on castings. Not every character will receive a casting in this video, and I also want to emphasize that I'll be attempting to make castings realistic. As cool as it would be for Oscar Isaac to play Crocodile, you have to remember that the show is operating on a Netflix budget, meaning that they likely don't have the money necessary to shell out thousands if not millions of dollars to get big-name actors or actresses to play major roles in the series. Now, don't let this be too big of a concern for you, though, because, I mean, seriously, I doubt many of you guys watched Season 1 and were like, "Oh, wow, look, Mom, Luffy's played by that guy from Mech Zombies!" In all seriousness, my only point in this whole castings discussion is that I'm going to make mine realistic, so don't be upset if you don't see a ton of recognizable names. You might here and there, but I'm not going to be pulling out Hollywood superstars that are household names across the board. Now, before we jump in, I want to thank my friend Howd Aspect, who chatted and helped create some of the concepts in this video, and convinced me to start watching One Piece. He's a great dude and you should totally check him out. The link to his channel is in the description down below. Lastly, make sure to hit the subscribe button. I'm a new channel, so any support helps. And if this does well, maybe I'll make a structuring Season 3 video. And I might also make videos with my blind read-through of the manga, just giving my reactions, breakdowns, and cool things I noticed in comparison to the anime. With all that Okay, hold up, 1 minute. Post-editing Nexus of Stories here. I just wanted to clear some things up. So when I first originally recorded this video, I was under the assumption that I was actually going to start a new YouTube channel to post this as my first video on. That, of course, has changed. I rebranded the JTVideos channel to the Nexus of Stories channel. So that's why that has been kept in. And secondly, I have decided to go ahead and begin making a manga review of the One Piece manga. It should be coming out next week, actually, episode 1. Stay tuned to the end of the episode to find out more about that. Anyways, sorry for this brief break at the very start of the video. Wanted to clear that up. Let's go ahead and jump back in to the anime. With all that being said, let's go ahead and jump in to my breakdown of the 8 episodes that make up live-action One Piece Season 2. Episode 1, Enter the Grand Line. So episode 1 will pick up directly where Season 1 ended. This episode will broadly cover the events of Log Town, entering the Grand Line via Reverse Mountain, and the team's encounter with Laboon. Starting off in Log Town, this is where we will get introduced to our secondary antagonists of the season, Captain Smoker and Tashigi. Captain Smoker will be portrayed as a powerful Marine captain who stops pirates from entering the Grand Line. Smoker and Tashigi will sort of get the Garp treatment from Season 1, but they won't get as much screen time as Garp. The major events that occur in Log Town include Zoro obtaining his new swords, Sandai Ketsu, and Yubashiri, and sorry in advance for absolutely butchering those names, from the sword shop. And this is also where we will meet Tashigi for the first time. Usopp will also obtain his goggles during a shopping spree with Nami, and most importantly, we will see Luffy attempt to stand on the platform where pirate Gold D. Roger was executed. We will still have the confrontation with Buggy the Clown and Iron May Salvita that results in an all-out fight between the Straw Hats and the Buggy Pirates. The fight will be stopped by Smoker, who shows off the power of the Smoke Fruit and gives us our first look at how Logia powers will work in live action. Luffy is almost beaten by Smoker until a mysterious man prevents Smoker from beating him and allows the Straw Hats to escape and begin their journey towards the Grand Line. This mysterious man is then revealed to be Monkey D. Dragon. And this will conclude our time in Log Town, which will take up roughly around 50 minutes of the episode. The rest of the episode will deal with the crew entering the Grand Line for the very first time via Reverse Mountain. And when we watch them reach the bottom of Reverse Mountain, you'll see that the Going Merry is eaten by a large whale. And the episode will end with the crew waking up inside the whale as they encounter an odd man named Crocus. So episode 1 will roughly be around 65 to 70 minutes in length, Log Town taking up about 50 minutes, and Reverse Mountain taking up around 15 to 20. This episode also introduces us to the major characters of Captain Smoker, Tashigi, Monkey D. Dragon, and Crocus. Now let's discuss my sole casting choice for episode 1. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm going to try to make these casting choices as realistic as possible, which is why I will not be casting Tashigi, Dragon, or Crocus. I couldn't really find any actors or actresses right off the bat that I thought fit these characters particularly well, but I know the people working on Season 2 will find excellent actors to play these respective roles. Now, the actor who I think would be an excellent choice to portray Captain Smoker in live action would be Martin Kove. You probably recognize Martin Kove from his role as John Kreese from the original Karate Kid movie and in the Cobra Kai Netflix series, but he's also appeared in other films such as Rambo, Steel Justice, and D-Day. Kove is known for playing incredibly confident, gruff, no-nonsense type characters. I think he could fit in and perfectly portray Captain Smoker because of this. Now, just to be fair, I will be the first to admit that Kove is not necessarily an unknown actor. He's appeared in some big projects beforehand, and he's currently 77 years old. So, he might demand more money than the team would be willing to pay him over at Netflix, and his age might also prevent him from being considered. But if I were personally asked who I would cast as a live-action Smoker, Kove would be my choice. So that about wraps up everything I want to discuss with Episode 1, so let's go ahead and move on to Episode 2. Episode 2, The Highest Bounty in the East Blue. Episode 2 will see the conclusion of the Laboon story, and will also cover the Whiskey Peak arc. Episode 2 picks up with Crocus explaining the story behind Laboon, and why he has massive scars on his body. And of course, this is important for a character who will join the crew in a future season. And we'll also see Luffy fight the whale, and make Laboon a promise that he will return to visit him once the Straw Hats travel across the Grand Line. The kindness shown to Laboon by Luffy leads to Crocus giving the Straw Hats a log pose. And this will sort of be the audience's tutorial on how the log pose works, and how it will set up the remainder of travel across the Grand Line. The crew then sets off for their next destination, and this portion of the episode will last around 15 minutes in length. The remainder of the episode will see the crew arrive in Whiskey Peak, where pirates are celebrated as heroes. The town begins celebrating the Straw Hat Pirates, as the town is gracing the presence of Luffy, the man with the highest bounty in the East Blue. This leads to the crew getting drunk and stuffed, leading to them falling asleep, unaware of the evil surrounding them. This is where we are introduced to Baroque works for the first time, and the officers who are located on Whiskey Peak: Mr. 8, Miss Monday, Mr. 9, and Miss Wednesday. We then watch Zoro take on the 4 officers and the rest of Baroque work agents that are on the island. In the midst of the chaos, Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine arrive and inform the 4 officers that they have discovered rats in Baroque works, which turns out to be Miss Wednesday and Mr. 8, who are secretly Princess Vivi of Arabasta and Captain of Arabasta's security, Igaram. Luffy and Nami wake up as a result of the chaos, and we see Luffy and Zoro team up to defeat Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine. After the 2 officers are defeated, Igaram promises Nami 1 billion berries if she can successfully return Princess Vivi home to Arabasta, terms to which Nami agrees. The crew quickly departs from Whiskey Peak with Vivi in hand. As the episode ends, we are introduced to the mysterious Miss All Sunday. who watches the crew as they sail away. Episode 2 will be around 60 to 65 minutes in length, with the Laboon material taking up around 15 minutes, and the Whiskey Peak material taking up around 50 to 55 minutes in length, with the major characters being introduced including primarily Princess Vivi, Igaram, and Miss All Sunday, along with other Baroque Works agents we met along the way. Now, let's get to the castings for Episode 2. So for some of the castings, I think I'm going to run through these rather quickly. For Princess Vivi, I think that Mimi Keen could do an excellent job in the role. I really enjoyed her in Sex Education, and she's known for playing strong-willed characters who are driven. And I think these are qualities that you need in a strong Princess Vivi. And how about we go ahead and cast her Sex Education co-star Alistair Petrie in the role of Igaram. Petrie is great at playing an anxious authority figure, so he would fit right in as Igaram. Now for Miss All Sunday, otherwise known as Nico Robin, who happens to be one of the most difficult characters to cast in all of One Piece. The current rumor is that Erin Maloney might be cast in the role, and after researching her and watching a few of her casting reels, I actually think that she'd be an excellent choice to portray Nico Robin. She's young enough to play the role for a while, and based on her IMDb page, she doesn't really have a lot of upcoming commitments, so overall, all the variables point to her being perfect to portray Robin in live action. Now with that being said, let's move on to Episode 3. Episode 3, Little Garden. Episode 3 will follow the events of the Little Garden arc and the start of Drum Island. At the start of Episode 3, we will have Princess Vivi give the crew a rundown of what has happened in Arabasta. The plan behind Baroque Works to build an ideal nation, the desire to start a civil war in Arabasta, and the secret identity of the leader of Baroque Works, Crocodile. We then watch the crew arrive at the next island from their log pose, Little Garden. While we wait for the log post to reset, we watch as the crew split up. Luffy and Vivi go to explore the island. Zoro and Sanji find food, with Usopp and Nami remaining on the ship. This is when we are introduced to the clashing giants of Dory and Bragi. Bragi tells Usopp about the island of Elbaf, which inspires Usopp to push harder to become a brave warrior of the sea. Not all is well on the island, however, as we are shown that Baroque Works agents Mr. 3 and Miss Golden Week have been called to the island. After the brawl between the giants is interrupted by an exploding alcohol planted by Baroque Works, Dory traps Luffy after accusing him of planting the alcohol. This results in Mr. 3 and Miss Golden Week capturing Vivi, Nami, and Zoro. The climax of the episode watches Luffy and Usopp fight against Mr. 3 and Miss Golden Week, freeing their friends and restoring the bond between Dory and Bragi. Unbeknownst to the rest of the crew as this is going on, Sanji manages to locate the hideout of Mr. 3. When he arrives, he receives a call from a mysterious man, who informs Sanji, who has disguised his voice to that of Mr. 3, that Mr. 2 will be arriving to pick him up shortly, that they should use the Eternal Log Post to head straight towards Arabasta, as the Civil War will be starting soon. Sanji tells the mysterious man that the princess and the Straw Hats have been killed, and takes the Eternal Log Post for the team to use. The crew agreed to use the Eternal Log Post to head straight towards Arabasta, as time is running out. Dory and Bragi see the crew off, but as the crew sets sail, we see a mysterious pirate ship watching the crew leave, the ship being home to the eccentric Mr. 2. As the crew restart their journey, the episode ends with Nami falling ill, and the crew deciding to take a detour to the next island in hopes of finding a doctor. Episode 3 will last around 60 to 65 minutes in length, and introduces us to the major characters of Dory, Bragi, Mr. 3, and Mr. 2. Now, let's get into the castings for Mr. 3 and Mr. 2. I think the perfect actor to portray Mr. 3 in live action would be Danny Pudi. You probably recognize Danny from his role as Abed on Community, but he's also voiced Huey in the new DuckTales remake, and recently played the mechanist in the live-action Avatar: The Last Airbender. The reason I'm going with Pudi for this role is that Pudi is very good at playing deadpan yet comedic characters, and I think he would be an excellent pairing alongside Jeff Ward's Buggy the Clown in future seasons. As for Mr. 2, I'm going to go with Brendan Hunt. Hunt most recently starred in Ted Lasso as the enigmatic Coach Beard, but has also played background characters in many shows including Community and Parks and Recreation. Mr. 2 is such a quirky character, but also a fan favorite. You need someone who is comfortable playing quirky and over-the-top characters, and that's exactly what Hunt does perfectly. I'd argue that some scenes he did as Coach Beard in Ted Lasso gave off strong Mr. 2 energy, and I think overall he would be a great fit for this role. With all that being said, let's jump in to Episode 4. Episode 4, Adventure in a Nameless Country. Episode 4 will be the first part of the Drum Island arc. Before we get started into Episode 4, I'd like to point out a major change from the anime and manga that will occur here. Instead of having the crew face off against Wapple, Mr. 2 will have followed the crew instead, and he will be the main villain of Drum Island. This change is meant to simplify things in hopes of allowing the story to move along in the limited format that we're dealing with on Netflix. This is similar to how Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine did not appear in Little Garden. Not a super major change or anything, but it's important to mention as to why I'm making this change. The episode will start off with the Straw Hats arriving on an island to search for a doctor to take care of Nami. When they arrive, they are greeted with townspeople who are acting hostile towards the group, led by a man named Dalton. After Luffy explains why they arrived on the island, Dalton brings the crew to the Drum Kingdom. Once the crew arrives, Dalton shares the terrible news that due to a recent attack from the evil pirate known as Blackbeard, most of the doctors were killed in the skirmish, and the sole doctor that lived remains on the top of the Drum Rockies, a large mountain that is home to dangerous animals and incredibly treacherous terrain. Luffy tells Dalton that no matter how perilous the journey, he will climb the mountain in order to save Nami. This splits the crew up into 3 groups: Luffy, Sanji, and Nami, who will attempt to climb the Drum Rockies, Usopp and Vivi, who stay with Dalton, and Zoro, who is guarding the Mary. We watch Luffy and Sanji attempt to climb the Drum Rockies, while Dalton explains the townspeople's hatred of pirates to Usopp and Vivi. He says that not only did Blackbeard attack the island, but a commander from the Whitebeard pirate showed up a few days ago searching for him. In the midst of the discussion, Dalton is called into the public square by Baroque's Works agents who seek to ask about the location of the Straw Hat pirates. Dalton initially refuses until Mr. 2 arrives and threatens to begin slaughtering the townspeople. Dalton breaks, and Mr. 2 heads for the Drum Rockies. Back with Team Luffy, we watch as Sanji is knocked out by the cold. As Luffy carries he and Nami to the top of the Drum Rockies, before he passes out, we are greeted with the face of one Dr. Kureha. We then cut to see Luffy, Nami, and Sanji being taken care of by Dr. Kureha, and as Nami slowly regains consciousness, we see a tiny reindeer tending to her wounds. He is frightened and runs away as Nami awakens. And this will be our first introduction to my favorite One Piece character, Tony Chopper. Back at the Drum Kingdom, Zoro reunites with Usopp and Vivi, and the crew decide to make the trip up to the Drum Rockies. As Zoro was asleep when Mr. 2 arrived, but woke to discover Mr. 2's ship docked near the Going Merry. We also see Luffy and Sanji interact with Chopper for the first time, and the episode ends with Mr. 2 and his lackeys arriving at the entrance of Dr. Kureha's castle. Episode 4 will last around 55 to 60 minutes in length and introduce the major characters of Dr. Kureha and Tony Chopper. Now, on to the castings. So first off is Dr. Kureha, and even though this actress is a relatively well-known actress, I have a very hard time seeing anyone except Jamie Lee Curtis playing Kureha. Curtis is a huge One Piece fan, and has repeatedly expressed her interest in playing Kureha specifically. So what the heck, when an Oscar award-winning actress wants to be a part of your series, you oblige. Next up, let's talk about Tony Chopper, and there's been a lot of discourse around Season 2 online, and how the Netflix team should seek to introduce Chopper into the mix. I personally think that taking an approach similar to that of The Mandalorian would be best, with the team using an actual puppet to portray Grogu, and mixing that with animation. The difficulty with Chopper opposed to Grogu, however, is Chopper's Rumble Ball abilities. And practically speaking, I'm sure that we can get a physical actor to play Chopper when he uses arm point, and animate when he uses guard point. So with that out of the way, portraying Chopper will mainly be voice work. So why not get Brina Palencia, his American voice actress, to voice him in the series? Chopper's already going to be a difficult character to work into the series, so let's not overcomplicate his casting. Anyways, let's move on to Episode 5. Episode 5, Luffy's Brother. Episode 5 will cover the conclusion of the Drum Island arc and the Nanohana arc. Episode 5 will start off with a battle between Luffy and Mr. 2, but more importantly, Dr. Kureha explains Chopper's backstory to both Nami and Sanji. This is where we will learn about Dr. Hiruluck, see his Jolly Roger, and get a background as to why Chopper wants to become a great doctor and is also fearful of humans. During the battle, Mr. 2 shows off the power of the clone fruit. Luffy will protect Hiruluck's Jolly Roger and works with Chopper to defeat Mr. 2. At the conclusion of the battle, Zoro, Usopp, and Vivi will reach the summit of the mountain. And this is where Luffy invites Chopper to join the crew. While Chopper initially refuses, he decides to join after Luffy insists. As the crew leaves Drum Island, they are sent off with the sight of cherry blossoms blowing in the wind. Chopper cries, and Kureha honors both Chopper and the late Dr. Hiruluck with this gesture. This will conclude the Drum Island arc and will take up around 30 minutes of the episode. After this, we will see Chopper integrate himself with the crew. He suggests that the crew put X's on their arms and cover them with a white cloth, in case they encounter Mr. 2 again, as he saw their faces prior to the team departing and would be able to mimic their faces thanks to his Devil Fruit abilities. This idea is accepted by the team and shows Chopper starting to grow more and more comfortable with his new Straw Hat family. During this, we also see Usopp constructing the Climax for Nami, and the segment ends with Vivi telling the team that they should stop in Nanohana to gather supplies before departing for Alubarna. As the team makes their way to Nanohana, we cut to see the marine ship of Captain Smoker and Tashigi, who are holding a captured Mr. 11, who's informed them of the events of Whiskey Peak, and has led the team to Nanohana. This will be Smoker's big reintroduction to the story. We then arrive at Nanohana as we see Luffy rush into town without a care in the world, seeking to appease his appetite. As he rushes into a bar in town, this is where Luffy comes face to face once again with Captain Smoker, but also a mysterious new character, the 2nd Division commander of the Whitebeard Pirates, and the brother of Luffy, Fire Fist Ace. While all of this is going on, Baroque Works agents are notified that the Straw Hats are present in Nanohana, having spotted Zoro, Nami, and Vivi. Sanji, Usopp, and Chopper are able to gather supplies for the crew, as they were not seen acting in cohort with the Straw Hats back on Whiskey Peak. As the team finishes their preparation, Ace fights off Captain Smoker and buys the team enough time to return to the Mary. As the team returns, they overhear Baroque Works agents saying that Mr. Zero has called for a meeting with officials in Rainbase. This causes the team to set Rainbase as their next travel destination. Ace then shows off his power by destroying Baroque Works ships and protecting the crew, but informs them that there is no indication that Blackbeard has visited the island, so he is going to depart. Before he leaves, he hands Luffy a scrap of paper, which will become important in future seasons. The episode ends with Miss All Sunday making her way to Rainbase, accompanied by Mr. 3 and Mr. 2, who she picked up following their defeats in Little Garden and Drum Island respectively. She communicates with Mr. Zero via a transponder snail and informs him that they are quickly approaching Rainbase. And before we fade to black, we see Crocodile's face for the first time. Episode 5 will last around 60 minutes in length, with the conclusion of Drum Island taking up about 30 minutes and Nanohana taking up around 30 minutes as well. Additionally, we are introduced to the major characters of Portgas D. Ace and Crocodile. Now, on to the castings. Starting with Portgas D. Ace, I believe that Zola Maradueña would be a perfect fit for the role. Zola is primarily known for his role as a DC superhero Blue Beetle and Miguel in Cobra Kai, but was actually someone who a few fans fan-casted to play the role of Monkey D. Luffy. Additionally, he and his Cobra Kai co-star Jacob Bertrand have shared their love for the show in the past, so I think with everything taken into consideration, Zola would be perfect as Ace. Now for Crocodile, who has been one of the more difficult in casting decisions I had to make. But I put a lot of thought into it, and I believe that Maximilian Osinski would be a perfect cast as Crocodile. Osinski has appeared in a number of popular shows including Ted Lasso, Walking Dead World Beyond, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But the reason why I think he would make a perfect Crocodile is his non-verbal acting. One of the defining characteristics of Crocodile is how intimidating he is. Simply his facial expressions and matter-of-fact way of handling himself portrays how confident he is in his actions, and this is something that Osinski excels at. Osinski is also great at playing characters who demand respect, and he has a large presence, being 6'4" in stature. So with everything being put together, this is why I think he would make a fantastic Crocodile. Okay, 3 more episodes to go, so let's wrap this up by moving on to Episode 6. Episode 6, Crocodile. Episode 6 will cover the Rainbase arc and Luffy's first fight with Crocodile. Episode 6 starts off by covering the Straw Hats' journey through the desert. Along the journey, the team will encounter Koza, a childhood friend of Vivi and the leader of the Revolutionary Army. As the team arrives at the Yuba Oasis, after Koza refuses to step down from his battle against Alubarna, Vivi pleads with the crew to allow her to return to Nanohana and abandon their plan. This is where we have Luffy's passionate speech, encouraging Vivi to let her friends help her save Arabasta, which Vivi appreciates. Before the crew arrives in Rainbase, we see members of Baroque Works descending upon Alubarna, while Smoker and Tashigi follow closely behind the Straw Hats as they arrive in Rainbase. Upon arrival, the team is greeted by Pell, member of the Arabasta Royal Guards, and the Duck Kuru, who have been sent by Igaram to ensure that Princess Vivi is safe. Vivi stays with Pell and Kuru, while Luffy, Zoro, Nami, and Usopp charge into rain dinners, followed closely by Smoker. Sanji and Chopper are lost in the mix, but Chopper is ultimately reunited with Vivi. Once inside, Luffy demands to see Crocodile, despite pushback from his crew, which ultimately leads to the 4 Straw Hats along with Smoker getting captured in a Sea Prism Stone cell. This is also when we first learn about the powers of the Sea Prism Stone, specifically that it weakens Devil Fruit users. Chopper is separated from Vivi when Baroque Work agents attempt to attack her, and while they are initially thwarted by Pell, Pell is eventually defeated when Miss All Sunday, Mr. 2, and Mr. 3 arrive on the scene, capturing Vivi and bringing her to Crocodile. It is here that Crocodile reveals his plan to Vivi, and Mr. 2 also reveals that he has been supplying Crocodile with dance powder to prevent it from raining, a main cause of contention for the rebels, with them believing that King Cobra has purposefully stopped rainfall everywhere except Alubarna. It is also revealed that the Baroque Work agents Mr. 1, Miss Doublefinger, Mr. 4, and Miss Merry Christmas have taken King Cobra, Chaka, and Igaram hostage in Alubarna. Crocodile tells Mr. 2 to head to Alabarna and meet up with the other agents. This is also where we see Crocodile's cruelty on full display, as he feeds Mr. 3 to his pet, Banawani, and decides to unleash Banawani on the Straw Hats as he and Miss All Sunday leave. While the room is flooded and Luffy and Smoker are drowning, Sanji finds a way into the room to make the save, defeating Banawani and helping to rescue the crew. Luffy also instructs Zoro to rescue Smoker, which leads to Smoker allowing the Straw Hats to leave Rain Base. You also see that Mr. 3 survived Banawani and was freed from the beast through Sanji's kick. Vivi informs the team that Kuru and the Duck Troop will take the team to Alubarna, while Luffy stays behind to fight Crocodile. The final scene of the episode shows Luffy fighting Crocodile, as we see Crocodile's Sand fruit powers on full display. The episode ends with Crocodile impaling Luffy with his claw, leaving him seemingly dead on the ground. The final shot of the episode shows the rebel forces making their way towards Alubarna. Episode 6 will last around 65 minutes in length and will introduce us to the major character of Pell. There are no new castings for this episode, so let's go ahead and jump into Episode 7. Episode 7, Showdown at Alubarna. Episode 7 will cover the first part of the battle at Alubarna. Episode 7 will start off showing King Cobra, Chaka, and Igaram being held captive by the Baroque Works agents Mr. 1, Miss Doublefinger, Mr. 4, and Miss Merry Christmas. Mr. 2 shows up and announces that the Civil War has officially begun, as we see rebels fighting against members of the Royal Army. Mr. 2 yells in anger, however, as we quickly see the Straw Hats approaching Alubarna with the Duck Troop. This leads to the Straw Hats devising a plan to distract the members of Baroque Works and allow Vivi to reunite with her father and figure out a plan to stop the fighting. This episode is mainly action-packed, with each member of the Straw Hats facing off against a Baroque Works agent. We see Usopp and Chopper fight against Mr. 4 and Miss Merry Christmas, Nami fighting against Miss Doublefinger, Sanji fighting Mr. 2, and Zoro fighting Mr. 1. While these battles are seemingly straightforward action scenes, they are all significant in their own right. Usopp and Chopper's fight allows Usopp to show off his creativity in battle, something that we really haven't gotten to see much in the series so far. Nami's able to use her climb attack for the first time against Miss Doublefinger, Sanji forms a friendship with Mr. 2 after their battle, and Zoro learns how to cut steel during his battle with Mr. 1. Vivi is reunited with her father, only for Crocodile and Miss All Sunday to arrive and tell the royal family that their mission is complete, and Arabasta will soon fall. This is when Crocodile reveals Miss All Sunday to be the mysterious Nico Robin, who he brought along to help decipher the meaning of a poneglyph, which is said to give instructions about how to obtain the legendary weapon, Pluton. While Cobra initially refuses, Robin begins torturing Vivi until Cobra breaks and agrees to take the duo to the grave of the king. The episode ends with the group departing from the castle as mysterious voices heard from the sky, with the final shot of the episode being Luffy falling and punching Crocodile in the face. Episode 7 will have a runtime of around 50 minutes and introduce us to the major characters of King Cobra, Chaka, Mr. 1, Miss Doublefinger, Mr. 4, and Miss Merry Christmas. Now, let's quickly run through some castings. To quickly run through these, I believe that Henry Simmons would make an excellent Mr. 1. He is known for his roles on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Ravenswood, and his overall acting chops make him a fantastic choice to play the role. I think that Laura Harrier would make a perfect Ms. Doublefinger. You probably recognize her as Liz from Spider-Man Homecoming. She's also been in White Men Can't Jump and Black Klansman. These are the only 2 castings for this episode, so let's finish up Season 2 of One Piece with Episode 8. Episode 8, Rain Falls on Arabasta. Episode 8 will begin with a flashback to how Luffy managed to survive his first encounter with Crocodile, as he was saved by Miss All Sunday and was nursed back to health by Pell, who flew him back to Alubarna. This then kicks off the episode with Luffy fighting Crocodile, and we also see that Luffy has found Crocodile's weakness, water. While this is able to slow Crocodile down, Crocodile manages to knock out Luffy momentarily while he, Robin, and Cobra head towards the Grave of Kings. In the meantime, Vivi reassembles the Straw Hat team along with Pell and Chaka as they figure out a way to stop the fighting. Pell recommends using a bell tower to allow Vivi to project her message, while the Straw Hats attempt to quell the fighting. In case you were wondering, the entire subplot about a bomb being planted in the bell tower is removed, just for the sake of convenience. We then see Igaram helping nurse Luffy back to consciousness, who immediately takes off in hot pursuit of Crocodile. This is when we see Crocodile, Robin, and Cobra enter the Grave of Kings and get our very first look at a poneglyph. Robin reveals that the stone does not reveal much information about Pluton, which leads to Crocodile impaling her in the stomach, as Cobra watches on. This allows Luffy enough time to enter the grave and begin his final showdown with Crocodile. The final climax of the episode sees Vivi frantically calling for the fighting to stop, but to no avail. Marines start arriving in Alubarna, and Luffy is gaining the upper hand against Crocodile. Crocodile reveals a poisoned tip of his claw and manages to hit Luffy with it. Despite this, Luffy unleashes a powerful Gomo Gomo no Storm, defeating Crocodile as rain falls once again on Arabasta. We then see the aftermath of the battle, with the injured being taken care of, and Smoker arresting Crocodile, Mr. One, and the other members of Baroque Works involved in the Civil War. The Straw Hats are recovering from battle as normalcy is returned to Arabasta, and the Straw Hats are celebrated, but are quickly told that they need to leave as the infamous Black Cage Hina has been called to arrest the team. Luffy asks Vivi to join his team, but she says that she will need time to decide. After a few days, listen to Vivi's speech to Arabasta following the events of the saga, as she and Kuru speed off to watch the Straw Hats depart. While she cannot join the team shows their friendship towards Vivi by holding up their arms in unison, all showing the X they place to help signify their identity. We then see Mr. 2 help the Straw Hats escape by disguising himself as the Straw Hats to prevent Hina from capturing them. The season ends with the reveal that Nico Robin has snuck aboard the Going Merry, and reveals that Luffy saved her from the collapsing Grave of Kings during his battle with Crocodile. Luffy also reveals that she saved him, twice, once during his initial battle with Crocodile, and a second time when she gave him the antidote to the poisoning from Crocodile's claw. Robin asks to join the crew, and Luffy accepts. He tells Nami to set course as the season ends. And just like Season 1, we have a post-credit scene of sorts, as we see Smoker and Hina bringing Crocodile, Mr. 1, Mr. 2, and Mr. 3 into Impel Down, as Monkey D. Garp and Sengoku, the Fleet Admiral of the World Government, watch on. Garp asks Sengoku if he really thinks it would be wise to give Smoker credit for what happened in Arabasta, and Sengoku says that the World Government can't manage to lose credibility after they were forced to arrest Crocodile. Sengoku ends the season by calling for a joint meeting with the 7 warlords of the sea. And that is how I would structure a Season 2 of live-action One Piece. I really enjoyed making this, and for those of you who stuck around for the entire episode, I appreciate it a lot. If this does well, I would love to make a future episode on Season 3 and even seasons beyond. So if you'd be interested in seeing that, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. Also, stay tuned as I'll be making videos on my blind read-through of the One Piece manga for the first time. I plan to cover a single volume each episode, so there's a lot of One Piece in store. This is not going to be the sole content on my channel moving forward, however, I'll still be making some Marvel videos here and there, but I'm going to start diversifying my videos. I don't really want to be stuck into one topic, so expect a lot of nuance moving forward from the channel. Again, thanks for watching, thanks for the support, and I will see you all again real soon.